not just that disease starts in the mind, it's that everything starts in the mind.
In today's world, these stresses are 24/7, 365. The net result is illness and disease.
90% of what takes people to the doctor is stress-related illnesses.
When you perceive a threat, in the old days we referred to that as fight or flight.
But now it's your spouse, or it's your boss, or it's rent that's due in a week. And yet the system reacts as though it's a life-threatening situation.
And if you're running a fight or flight response all the time, your immune system is compromised chronically.
We have the most money going into healthcare than any country in the world, and we have some of the worst statistics of healthcare.
My body wants to be healthy, but it's the head it's the fear.
I don't know who I am without being sick.
In a way, we have more faith in the power of cancer to kill us than we have faith in the power of infinite possibility.
Every organ in the human body has the ability to heal itself under the right conditions. What are those conditions? That's the question.
We are in a mindset that our body is a machine full of organs with buttons and levers that need adjusting.
Psoriasis and eczema, cause unknown. Multiple sclerosis, cause unknown. Fibromyalgia, cause unknown.
There are examples of people out there who have healed from it. When I looked at the data, they were all using these 9. Only 2 of them are physical. The rest are mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Does this mean medicine is all negative? And I go, absolutely not. Medicine does miracles with trauma.
What we see here is belief itself shifts biology. That intelligence giving us life. It is the greatest healer in the world.
These symptoms are brilliantly intelligent in waking us up. Doesn't matter how long you've been sick, you can heal, and always remember that and never forget it.
我们都曾有过风雨过后的沉重，形同陌路的口，但心却还流通。当我们一起走过这些伤痛的时候，抱着碎裂的心，继续下一个梦，也知道我们并不会退缩。狂奔的念头不曾停止温柔，一直到将来我们都成熟，就不再困惑生命有多少过错。我在旷野漂流的尽头，就是你爱的宽容，你眼底的温柔，也为我保留新的寄托。我们都曾有过风雨过后的沉重，形同陌路的口，但心却还流通。这些伤痛的时候，抱着碎裂的心，继续下一个梦，一直到将来我们都成熟，就不再困惑生命有多少过错。我在旷野漂流的尽头，就是你爱的宽容，你眼底的温柔，也为我保
Super excited about our next guest, Amy and Jeremy of now is it AJ or is it A&J? AJ Bodywork. So this, I'm not even kidding. I wish I were acting. I'm not that good of an actor. That's why I'm still doing this job. But when you guys told me about what you do, it blew my mind right away. This might be the alternative that people are looking for when it comes to pain management. But tell me about this massage, because you know when people hear that massage, oh, I don't want to take my clothes off, I want to have to get oiled down. This one, though, you do with your clothes on.
Absolutely.
And show me how it works.
So this is cranial sacral therapy is what we're talking about today.
Okay.
It was invented in 1975, and there's over 100,000 practitioners worldwide.
But it's new to us here in Utah.
It's not new to us, but it's a really cool thing. So your cranial bone in your head and your
Jeremy, you're
sacrum
going to be our model.
in the back.
You have to turn around. Yeah, he's going to be the model. Okay, show us.
Brother and sister bones. Here's our cranium.
Okay.
Here is our sacrum.
Okay.
And it's
the spine comes in,
the spine comes straight through those.
Okay.
And basically is what it is that you're using the nervous system in the spine and in the cranium, and you're relaxing it, taking it from a sympathetic nervous system with fight or flight to a parasympathetic rest and digest where healing occurs. And so it is a pain alternative that you can use for headaches, for fibromyalgia, for neck pain, back pain. It's been known to...
I was talking before we started the interview that it's the first thing that's different is you have your clothes on.
Yes.
The other thing that's different is you're not really grinding down. Explain that.
So a lot of massages that you think of are kind of, you get in there and really work on the body, maybe use elbows, knuckles, fists, those kinds of things, right?
You're really applying pressure.
Right. So we're trying not to be a bully on the body. We're trying to encourage the body to find its own healing. So we're encouraging the body to find its healing and to use its own innate abilities to heal. And we're just trying to help the body find that place where it can heal, where it goes into that rest and relax, and it starts to rebuild and regenerate, and those different parts that may be stuck, that you have maybe tension in your diaphragm, it helps to relieve that tension, which then helps relieve everything else in your body.
Amy, there's got to be numerous stories about some people who have got some relief, otherwise they didn't before until they met you guys.
You know what? It's really incredible because it's like we get to be miracle workers. Although we're not healers, we call ourselves facilitators. I have my best friend, her husband had a brain tumor, and he had issues with cognitive, memory, and speech. And after a 50-minute session, his speech came back. The day before he had his brain surgery to have the tumor removed. When radiation happened, he went down again. We were able to recover it, bring back his speech. Third time he came into us, it was his fifth and final radiation where he had to go in an MRI afterwards. My best friend called me, she says he can't even walk. He was limping in, he was crying, he couldn't do all of these things. We spent the 50 minutes doing this protocol with the cranial sacral therapy, and again, he stood up, stretched, could speak clearly, and hasn't had any issues ever since.
Now, I click on the place. Here's to happy, healthy healing.
Osteopathic medicine emphasizes a philosophy of treating patients in a holistic manner. In the United States, doctors of osteopathic medicine, or DOs, are fully licensed physicians who practice in all areas of medicine, who are trained to meet patients where they are, and understand all of the things in their life that contribute to their health. DO medical school programs incorporate this approach while also developing the competencies in which all physicians are trained in the US. Sometimes medicine can focus on treating an illness. Many patients might be given a diagnosis, which is a type of label, so that they can be sent to the appropriate specialty office to get care. A person with recurrent skin abscesses might get sent to infectious diseases. Stomach pain goes to gastroenterology, headaches go to neurology, and so on. At first glance, this seems like a convenient way to manage patients, but oftentimes the system falls apart. For example, the person with stomach pain might also be dealing with severe anxiety, something that a gastroenterologist might not be thinking about or feel comfortable managing. In theory, every medical professional should be able to think outside of their specialty box. But in practice, the medical culture of applying labels and then operating within those labels sometimes heavily influences how clinicians solve problems. This approach also misses important opportunities, because the absence of disease isn't the same as maximizing a person's wellness. For example, a person might not have hypertension or diabetes. but they'd still benefit from a better diet and stress reduction habits, both of which are strongly tied to well-being and happiness for years to come. Philosophically, osteopathic physicians are trained to see their role as optimizing individual health, and not just eliminating disease. Now, the 4 key tenets of osteopathic medicine are that a person's made up of a mind, a body, and a spirit, that the human body is capable of self-regulation, self-healing, and health maintenance, that the physical structure and function of the body are interrelated, and that rational treatment and care should be based on these foundational concepts. One component of osteopathic medicine that all DOs learn and many DOs utilize in practice is osteopathic manipulative treatment, sometimes called OMT, which is when a DO uses hands-on techniques to diagnose, treat, and prevent injury and illness by moving a person's muscles and joints using techniques with different types of pressure and resistance. These movements can help people of all ages and backgrounds with back, neck, and other muscle pain, as well as with other problems like carpal tunnel syndrome, migraines, and even asthma. In a lot of cases, osteopathic manipulative treatment can be used to complement or sometimes even replace medications or surgery. DOs work in the full range of specialties, everything from family medicine to oncology to orthopedic surgery and child psychiatry. DOs are trained with a strong hands-on, patient-centered primary care focus, which gives them useful skills and a unique perspective, regardless of whatever specialty they go into.
That structure follows function, the body is a unit, the body heals itself, and the body is self-regulating. Mm-hmm. And the waters he called cerebrospinal fluid the river of life. And he said the waters of man, the soul of man lives in the waters of the fascia.
Wow, and this is the founder of osteopathy.
Yes, yes. And his famous quote is saying, "He who is able to reason must know that unless withering fields are irrigated at once, all hope for a harvest of health is lost."
And what does he mean by that?
He meant that in order to have the brain function as a whole unit, a field of produce, we need to flood it with circulation. And the water is the cerebrospinal fluid, and it gives nutrition to the brain. It's the water of our tomatoes of our head. And here comes the next person comes is William Garner Sutherland. He's the father of cranial osteopathy. He was a student of Sutherland.
Of Andrew Taylor Still.
Of Andrew Taylor Still. He was born in 1873 and died in 1954. And he said, I just happen to have this other little skull. He said, structure follows function. That's what Andrew Taylor Still says. Well, if that's the case, why is the skull, why does it have different bones? Why isn't it just a coconut? Well, it's got these sutures, he's got these joints. And he looked at the temporal bones and the beautiful sphenoid bone. And he said, my God, these bones look like they're designed to move. They look like the gills of a fish. The gills of a fish move throughout life. This must be why it is. And so he spent the remainder of his life experimenting. His wife wrote a lovely book called With Thinking Fingers, and she documented also his exploration. Yeah, and he put it in the old days. This is a 1902, a 1903, and in the 1910s around there. The baseball gloves was like a great big pizza pie. He put the baseball glove around his head, strapped it on. He also took his wife's beautiful butter bowl that they churned butter with, carved out one section of it, put it on his head, and put straps around it, so it would limit the motion of one side of his head.
So what did people think of this at this time?
Well, they thought it was a nut. And then he would ask his wife to record what would happen. And so one of the pioneers, we have to say, one of the pioneers of the work in craniosacral therapy is Mrs. Sutherland. because she had to live with this funny man. And so what he experienced was, he experienced head pain. You would too if you had a wooden bowl in your head, right? But he had word loss, word retrieval loss, changes in his vision, longitudinal spinal back pain, and he had a lot of the symptoms that his patients were presenting with. And so from that reasoning, he said these bones and the motion of the skull must be important for health. And so he started formulating, using his hands to use the bones as handles to access this beautiful membrane inside the skull, called the meningeal membrane. And so he called cerebrospinal fluid, he called it the breath of life. And he said that in order for health, there had to be reciprocal tension mechanism. So there had to be a balance between the occiput and the sacrum. And he called the movement in the waters of the brain tides, as if they were water and ocean tides. And he said what we need to do is we need to be still and know. And if we be still and we listen to the body, it will express itself. He was a fabulous man. And then comes Upledger. And he also, Sutherland also said we need to know our anatomy. We need to learn our anatomy.
So everybody's stressing anatomy. It really
they all
sounds
are.
like,
they all are. And here comes my direct teacher, John Upledger. He was born in 1933. He died most recently in 2012. He was a wonderful friend. He was my teacher. He was my friend. He wrote the introduction to my first book, Lessons from the Sessions. He was a fabulous man. He was an osteopath, and he wanted to be a surgeon. He wanted to do surgery and prescribe medications, and he had a patient in around 1970 by the name of Delbert. And this man had pain in his legs of unknown origin. And they saw a neurosurgeon, and the neurosurgeon said, I did see this one time in a rotation in Japan, and what it was, there was a piece of calcific plaque in the neck that was strangulating the central nervous system, affecting the nerves most distant, and namely the feet. So they did a myelogram, and they did find this piece of calcific plaque. They did the surgery, and Upledger was assisting, and his role was to hold the dural tube still, so that this doctor can debride that little piece of calcific plaque.
And that dural tube, that's the membrane that's encasing the spinal cord.
Yes, that's the meningeal membrane, made of fascia. And so they opened the spine up with what they call laminectomy, and they opened the spine up. They could see the area that needed to be debrided. The calcific plaque is like a little piece of dried fish food. A little, like a cornflake. Yeah. And so here's the hole, and he was to hold it open. And what happened was the dural tube was pulsating and moving in and out, and in and out. And the neurosurgeon said, hey, John, hold that still. John says, you know, I'm having a hard time here. What is this? No one in the operating theater knew what that was. So he did hold it still. They did remove the plaque, and Delbert did get better. And so they went on. Upledger was intrigued by that, and he went back and he looked into the foundations of osteopathy, and he bumped into the work of William Garner Sutherland. He started studying that work, he started taking classes, he became a nationally known cranial osteopath. He was given a grant to be part of a study at Michigan State University to prove or disprove Sutherland. So they had 22 researchers.
So he was proving or disproving
Sutherland's concepts.
The concepts of the cranial
bone. Exactly. And so one of the things they did, they used live Ricci monkeys, and they put electrodes on the parietal bones, and then they sent radio frequency through those electrodes, those antennae, and they were attached to an oscilloscope type of thing. And so any variation of movement in these antennae would reflect in the motions on the oscilloscope. And what they found was the antennae were moving apart and together at a rate of about 10 cycles per minute.
Wow.
So here was living proof, you know, that the bones move. He then went on to develop, there had been a movement within the osteopathic community of craniosacral osteopaths, and they had developed craniosacral therapeutics. And so Dr. John took a lot of Sutherland's manual techniques and created a therapy called craniosacral therapy. And he taught that around the world. and the institute's still active. And he said that this should be taught to anyone with a good intention and with a good touch and a willingness to be of help. And he said that CST belongs to the world and not any one institute or any one school of thought or any one school, and that we need to share it with the world. And he said that if you're going to do craniosacral therapy, I challenge you to make the world a touch better. And it's from that he also introduced some really beautiful, he talked about intention. The touch is so light. Why can we have an effect if the touch is so light? And he said the basis, the power of our work is based on intention. And he said that there's a consciousness in the body and a non-conscious. And we can access the non-conscious of the body by way of the cranial rhythm. Because the cranial rhythm changes and moves by way of the consciousness, the non-conscious of the inner workings of the body. Going back to the other founders that said the origins of the cranial rhythm are in the divine and come from our innate nature.
Sounds like another episode.
It is.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're going to continue on with this in our next installment of the series. My name is Charisse Bergoski. This is Dawn Ash here with me. I hope you tune in next time to your inner wisdom in fluid form. Thank you.
Thank you.
Check in again for more episodes on your inner wisdom in fluid form. Thanks for listening.
Emotional trauma is the beginning of disease and goes back to very early childhood memories. Can we correct that? Yes, we can correct that.
You know, when people know their tingles and numbness on their body, or their ringing in the ears, or their thyroid problem is caused by a certain pathogen, the truth comes out. And they realize it's not their body destroying itself. You wouldn't believe the ability they can get for healing, like what can fire up for them to move forward. Because they're like, okay, you know what? It's not me I'm battling. Realize that your body's working with you side by side. It's not letting you down, even when you think it could be. It's not. It's right by your side. It's there. It's gonna help you get there. So keep on moving forward, keep on going. Your body loves you, it loves you unconditionally, and it's not letting you down. Have patience, have compassion, take one day at a time. You're gonna get there. Doesn't matter how long you've been sick, you can heal, and always remember that and never forget it.
Say, well, I don't have faith. But actually, everyone has faith of some kind. You either have faith in possibility, or you have faith that that possibility doesn't exist. And in a way, we have more faith in the power of cancer to kill us than we have faith in the power of God, the power of miracles, the power of infinite possibility, the power of any force other than what our eyes can see and our hands can touch to actually interrupt the power and the trajectory of disease. So this is just one of the many ways in which, as we change our thinking, we have such capacity to do nothing less than actually boost our immune systems. The idea of faith, the idea that there is no external power that we're talking about here, that there is an internal power that can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves, is a paradigm shift, as they say, that applies to something much more than just healing the body. It has to do with healing our lives.
There's a part of your body that you might have never heard of, yet is one of the most critical anatomical structures. It's called fascia. It's essentially the connective tissue between all your muscles, bones and organs. It's everywhere, yet historically has been poorly understood. In recent years, however, there's been a huge interest in this peculiar connective tissue and the key role it plays in everything from healthy day-to-day living to Olympic level sports. you're about to go on a fascinating journey, investigating the role that fascia plays in the human body. Emerging from this story is the idea that we Homo sapiens may be the most domesticated species on the planet, and that perhaps a lot of our problems stem from this unnatural lifestyle.
Rather than thinking of individual muscles that are each separate in your body, the latest research teaches us that more important to our health is fascia. To illustrate this, think of a pair of pajamas with feet and a hood. These feety pajamas as fascia is just an outside look. In reality, fascia is the connective tissue around everything, every organ, every tendon, every ligament, every muscle cell. It's like a spider's web inside your body that connects everything to everything. So let's think about having an injury or if muscles are chronically tight. Imagine what happens to our fascia if our shoulders are super tight. See how the neck, the arm, and even the chest are affected? What if you had surgery in your belly? Some people develop scar tissue that can affect the pelvis, the digestive system, even the rib cage. Over time, the effects of having scar tissue like this can change your posture, cause bladder problems, even shoulder problems. And now let's think about breast cancer surgery. First, there's a shock of diagnosis. That can cause some tightening around the shoulder, then the biopsy, surgery, radiation. The entire shoulder area and chest can become affected and constricted. And there's a natural inclination to protect that area. Some people develop scar tissue more than others, so this can further contribute to the tightness. Scar tissue can grow over time, creating a sort of beaver dam, which makes it hard for lymph to move through this, thus increasing your risk of lymphedema. It is crucial to get the range of motion back in your shoulder, normalize the fascia in that area.
But here's end of the first month after conception, you've got an image here showing you how the neural tube and the developing egg goes into this big flexion movement here. So it's called enfoldment. And suddenly you've got an embryo shape, haven't you? Now what we believe is this was the beginning of primary respiration. That thing that's going like that Johns Hopkins University ran over the embryonic and fetal periods of life. So just check this out. Cool, so on it goes, it's on a loop, but what we're seeing there is how the embryo grows right up to birth. And it's an underlying rhythm that everything's built on top of.
This presentation is sponsored by Cranial Release Technique.
The World Summit of Integrative Medicine 2015 presents Dr. William Doresti. William C. Doresti, DC, is CEO of Cranial Release Technique, Inc., a national training institute that he founded in 2005. The institute is dedicated to the advancement of the cranial release technique as a vital tool for healthcare practitioners worldwide in promoting wellness and reducing stress in patients and clients.
Welcome to this presentation on the cranial release technique. My name is Dr. William Duresti. I'm the CEO and the founder of the cranial release technique, which we'll probably call CRT, for the concept of the primary respiratory mechanism, this involuntary pumping mechanism of the cranium that all of us have from the time we're born until the time we leave this planet. It was Dr. Sutherland that said it's the system that comes first. It underlies all of life's processes and gives dynamism, form, and substance to all of anatomy and physiology. It's the spark that gives rise to the breath as it moves through the tissues. It's the foundation of metabolism, and it has both an inhalation and exhalation phase. Dr. Sutherland was absolutely convinced that the key to unlocking human physiology was through the head, and I have found that to be as well. If we look at Michael's shoulders, what you'll see is his right shoulder is elevated. Michael, if you could just put your hands out to the side. His right hip is also elevated. And what I want you to understand here is that from this cranial distortion that Michael is presenting with, you can put the hands down now, Mike, that's then leading to an osseous craniosacral distortion. And we're going to change everything by addressing the cranium. Well, as we just saw with Michael, here's a real skull, and again, everywhere you look at this skull is distortion. You can see here, one eye is lower, the ears are distorted, the external auditory meatuses are distorted. There's distortion everywhere in the cranium. There's distortion at the condyles as well. And if you look inside the cranium, and as my slide shows from Gray's Anatomy, obviously we're protecting the central nervous system, and every one of these little foramen, if you remember back from school, all the cranial nerves pass through, the spinal cord passes through. This is essentially what makes you, you, and me, me. And again, because of this osseous distortion, that's going to negatively impact the physiological function of the central nervous system. And so moving on, if you remember back from school, and as my slide demonstrates again from Gray's Anatomy, the dura mater, the toughest tissue in the body, stronger than bone, white, inelastic, fibrous tissue. But what I never learned in chiropractic school is that the dura blends in and becomes the periosteum of all 22 of the cranial bones. As if the wallpaper on the wall is the dura. And so as this cranium shifts and rocks and distorts, that dura then tightens. And the best analysis I can give you, and what I use with my patients quite often, is a towel. So imagine that this is your dura, beginning in the cranium, ending in the coccyx, and that dura, of course, is covering the central nervous system. And as that cranium shifts, rocks, and distorts from traumas and stresses, things that we'll cover in a little bit, that dura now tightens down, and this person is now going through life with dural tension. And there's no way that your body will function optimally when you have dural tension. Remember, the dura is covering the brain and the spinal cord. So if someone were to say to me, what's the purpose of cranial release? Well, the purpose of cranial release is really to relax the dural tension to optimize physiological function in the body.
我要赞美主生命，我要歌颂主生命，你把学习着我内心的无畏。我要荣耀主生命，我要高举主生命，你的爱拥抱我，不再被罪恶捆绑。主你安生触摸我，去走内心的伤痛，在你里面我重新得力，有满足的喜乐。主你荣光照亮我，生命不再有愁烦，在你里面我的神有灵，因你的爱 放得低，誰在意原因？曾歷挫敗，傷感已不需慰問，讓我的將來感激今天的障礙，跌下又再企起。
你拼命逃跑，不斷努力尋找依靠，你怒吼呢個地方實在太過嘈吵 ，so nervous， 太逼，太多嘢被壓抑，你有放棄嘅態度，又起飛，一朝一夕向前行，唔好回頭，時間從未停留，光陰不斷流，走到最後，你發現冇人願意為愛留守，再冇人會為你作出最後挽留。
已經受夠，已經覺得無法忍受，來日就好似一個永遠止唔到血嘅傷口，想放棄可以揾到太多藉口，想挽留就只需要一個理由，生命由自己編寫，就算命運偏歪，緊握拳頭到最後唔需要別人施捨，條路越行越斜，就算攀山越野，只要到達頂峰你會發現新嘅視野。曾幾何時我充滿理想鬥志，曾幾何時我感到落魄失意，曾幾何時我覺得自己好似一個被遺棄嘅孤兒，事與願違，好多事都唔受控制，付出所有心血都可以一白費，係諗得太過美麗，係現實太過實際，為生計係咪人生嘅真諦？
放得低，誰在意原因？曾歷挫敗，傷感已不需慰問，讓我的將來感激今天的障礙，跌下又再企起。
This is one life that we have, this is one time that we live. The moment comes when we feeling it. Oh, this is our life that we know, this is our shine that we show. There will come a time when we feel with it. Keep up the vibes, let the records keep spinning. Let's make the best of what we have, don't judge it good or bad, the evolution of one. From the streets to a cozy pad, from the rhymes in my head to dropping them on a track. I'm chillin' on big stacks, I'm killing on the music. I made it for my fam so we all could be. Lifestyle so sad, my inner child so blessed. So flow with the blue skies, keeping the dreams high.
挫折中能磨練我藐視傷痕，懷着赤誠開闢你的新城。